Illinois State Comptroller Susanna Mendoza with an important message about the Debt Transparency Act. One night in May, I went to bed thinking we had a bill backlog of $13.3 billion. That seemed nightmarish enough. I awoke to find the administration had surprised my office with $1 billion of bills we never even knew existed, boosting the backlog of unpaid bills to $14.3 billion. Now I thought, how is that even possible? So I looked into it, did a little investigating of my own, and found that state agencies can hold on to bills, essentially hiding them, sometimes for a year or even more. The state legislature will be voting this week on whether to override Governor Rauner's veto of a very good bill called the Debt Transparency Act that would let you, the taxpayer, me, the comptroller, and legislators see how many bills are sitting unpaid at state agencies. Now, to better explain this, let's use your home finances as an example. Let's say you have 3 credit cards. You only get one statement per card per year. And let's say they only list a total amount due of $10,000 for each card. That's it. It doesn't give you any details of what was charged to each card or when the charges were even made. You also can't tell whether that 10 grand is for actual purchases, how much of that is for late payment interest penalties, or how much interest each card even charges. Now, it's smart to pay down the highest interest cards first whenever possible, right? And don't you think that if your spouse or kids went on a spending spree with your credit cards, you'd want to know more about those charges? I also think you'd agree that those statements would be pretty useless to you. Now, you wouldn't stand for that from your credit card companies, and you shouldn't accept that from your government either. Over the last 2 years, our state government, specifically Governor Rauner and his agencies, added more than $11 billion to the state's debt. He inherited a $5 billion backlog of unpaid bills. That $5 billion's not on him. However, he must take responsibility for the more than 200% increase in the backlog that occurred under his direction. The once $5 billion bill backlog peaked this year at $16.5 billion. Now, in your example, you'd likely ask your spouse or child, "Hey, love, what did you spend $30,000 on?" You'd expect a detailed answer. In my case, as a state's chief fiscal officer, I too would like to be able to say to the governor, "Excuse me, Governor, could you please explain what you spent $11 billion on so that I can figure out a plan for paying it down and have it be transparent to taxpayers?" The administration's response, and what's only required by state law, is this: once a year, one page that lists a total of bills sitting at state agencies. No detail. It doesn't tell me how old these bills are. It doesn't tell me whether the legislature has appropriated, in other words, authorized money for these expenditures. The list is current as of June 30th, so already 3 months out of date by the time I even see it. It doesn't tell me how much in late payment interest penalties the state owes. My best estimate is that Illinois taxpayers are on the hook for at least $900 million in late payment interest penalties alone. That's no way to manage the state's finances. We can and must do better because you deserve to know what's being charged to your credit card. I take my responsibility to manage your tax dollars very seriously. As controller, I'm looking to improve processes and increase financial transparency in order to better manage our debt and safeguard your dollar. Knowing the extent of our state's liabilities is an essential component of responsible cash and debt management, and it will put us on the path to sounder fiscal footing. This is the role of the Comptroller's Office today and moving forward. It's why I went to Republican and Democratic state legislators and asked them to support the Debt Transparency Act, which would require state agencies to give me a monthly, instead of a just once a year, report on how many bills they have, how old the bills are, whether they are authorized, and how much in late payment interest penalties is owed on them. This bill, sponsored by Representative Fred Crespo and Senator Andy Manar, passed out of both houses with bipartisan majorities. The governor vetoed it. Since then, just about every newspaper in the state has urged legislators to override his veto during this week's veto session. The Quad City Times said, quote, Rauner's opposition to the Debt Transparency Act is unjustifiable from a man who pledged to bring business sense to Springfield. Any business would be cooked if it managed its books in the blind, like Illinois does now. End of quote. This is a critical transparency reform that needs to happen for better financial management, regardless of who the future governors or controllers are. Responsible and transparent finances should be nonpartisan. If you agree with me, please contact your own state legislators today and urge them to vote to override the governor's veto of House Bill 3649, the Debt Transparency Act. Thanks so much for your time.